Next up is Ashley, a brilliant creative agency partner from Facebook. As advertisers, we're all aware that change is the name of the game, and while brands will forever need advertising, the way that we actually execute on that is constantly evolving. In her talk, Ashley's going to share 7 key creative areas to focus on now to prepare for the longevity of your clients' brands. Ashley, my friend, the stage is yours.
Hello, welcome to my presentation about creative skills of the near future. Thank you so much for being here today, AdWorld folks. If you're a creative or work at a creative agency, I've built this presentation for you. But if you're someone that works with creative teams, like you're a brand manager or you have an internal creative team, this is also a good presentation for you because I'm going to talk a lot about the type of skills that you should have available either as part of your team or as a creative agency or individual yourself so that you can make the best possible work in the future and, well, today as well. So let us get started. I don't know why I sing during presentations. I'll try to hold back. It may come out naturally. I'm a wannabe Britney. It's just there. All right. My name is Ashley Vincent. I am a creative agency partner for Facebook Benelux. I work here in the Amsterdam office. Currently at home. You may wonder what is behind me. It is my favorite Snow White snow globe. On the screen, you will see a picture of me with my mother. Something happened when I got older. My hair just turned blonde. Unusual, I know, but yes, I was originally a very cute young brunette. Part of my background, so why am I here talking to you? Well, as my role creative agency partner, I give advice to creative agencies. And because I have the background, I've worked at creative agencies. So I've worked at DDB, I've worked at Tribal, I've worked at BBDO, and I also worked at the Twitters. And I've also worked at really, really tiny shops. Like we had $4.56 to get something done. So for those of you that are thinking, oh, she comes from like a big fancy background, she's used to these big budgets, she doesn't know what it's like. And I'm like, I do know what it's like. I know what it's like to have limited resources and, trying to compete with these big guys. And let me tell you a secret. It doesn't actually matter really the size or really the budget. If you have good creative and you have good message, the small guys can play with the big guys just as well. So if you're a small business, I see some of the best ads coming out of these small companies that are really hustling to make a presence, and you're doing a good job. So what I'm going to talk about today is good for the small business, is good for the big business, good for the medium business, because these skills apply for everyone. Okay, so where are we today? What's going on? Here we are in 2021. As you may be aware, 2020 changed a lot of things, and it really changed a lot of things that are happening with clients and on the brand side. So what we saw that a lot of brands are really reevaluating kind of their marketing strategies and who they want to work with, how they want to execute work, really a lot of their thinking that is going into how they actually market and brand themselves. And for me, what I saw come out of this was a great opportunity for creative agencies to really redefine the role and really show the value to the clients of what they can bring to the party. And I know there's a huge trend, people are bringing people in-house. Maybe we're not getting those agency deals locked in as much as possible, but I think a lot of that comes from how can we as creative folks actually show our value and how our skills align with what clients need today. And let's talk about that. So what are clients wanting? So I talk to a ton of clients here in Europe, and I hear a lot of the feedback. In fact, I pulled this report from Campaign. They did this CMO Outlook. And one of the questions they asked is, what are the capabilities that you're looking for in a future marketing teams? And they broke it down. And if you look at it, programmatic media, okay, ability to scale, data and analytics. So we see that rising, but of course, what's happening, the more data we get, the more we need help trying to analyze and see what that is. Strategic thinking, of course, always in style. Ad tech, martech. So there's so many tools out there. A lot of clients, I talk to are looking for advice of which tools should we use to really automate some of these processes. And of course, creativity. Without creativity, what is your brand? How do you actually make a difference? So these are really the things that, while this report comes from EMEA, it's something that I hear globally that clients are saying that they need and something that they want to get from their agencies. And what's happening right now is there's a lot of creative challenges, and one of the first ones I think about is people aren't necessarily following best practices, whether or not that's because the creative agency chose that, or that's how they were briefed, or that's what the client expects. We know a lot what works, but we're not always executing it. And right now, with a huge shift towards e-commerce is kind of at, I would say, really its nascent stage. Even though it's been around for a really long time, it's really advancing in how it works. And with the huge shift last year, so many people going to e-commerce, we still have a lot of room to grow and improve and make this an even better experience from a creative standpoint. I also see still a lot of manual creation. I get it. It's just what you've been briefed to do. We're all doing, big toolkits, zipped up files with a bunch of JPEGs and some, MP4s. There are better ways to do that, yet we're still doing manual work a lot. I also see what's happening is data is being misinterpreted. Now, this is an age-old problem. This isn't something new. But what's happening is some of that data, the way it's being understood, is actually impacting the direction of the creative when it doesn't need to. So it's something that as a creative person, it's a good skill to have and be able to answer to, since you're being judged by these numbers. Another thing is limited or no testing. So digital is one of the most amazing mediums in the sense of how quickly you can get feedback and know how you're performing. Yet over and over again, we don't see people really taking advantage of that. And this is a great opportunity. And of course, there's always a focus on what's cool now, working at Facebook, working at Instagram. You see this all the time. How do I get into that beta? How do I do the new cool thing? I want to be first. And a lot of times, what's happening is when you focus on that, you may be missing an opportunity to grow the brand in another way. And last, unfortunately, we see many times that the creative is devalued. So not necessarily because people are bringing it in-house, but that they don't see the necessity to invest in it and to grow it as an actual craft. And this is something that I hope personally to change and really help clients understand the value of creativity. And that's why I love to train the agencies and teach them these things so they can prove to their clients as well how critical a partner they are to them growing their brand. All right, so let's get started. So what skills should creative work of the future possess? Now, I want to qualify this by, there's a lot of you going, hey, I already do that. I already get it. And that's true. There are a lot of agencies out there that are doing many of the things that I'm talking about today. But the challenge is it's not ubiquitous. In other words, it's not all over and not everyone is doing this. So you may be doing, let's say, 3 out of these 7 that I'm about to talk about, but there's an opportunity always to grow. So the first area that we need to really put more focus and creativity towards is consumer-centric creative. And, one of the examples I had is that I have agencies a lot of times call me up and they'll say, I have this idea, I want to run this. And I've heard this many times in very different versions. So Ashley, I have this amazing film, right? And it's like 67 seconds. And, I need to know how I can get the consumer to actually turn their phone, right? Put the audio on and watch all 67 seconds. I get it, right? I get it. I understand. Oh yeah, horizontal, beautiful. You have this great landscape viewpoint. I understand your audio is extremely critical. This is your art form. And yes, I get it. In order to experience that, they're going to have their audio on and turn their phone for the full experience. But the reality is we can't force people to do anything. And when we're thinking about creativity, we're thinking about how can we make our creative really aligned with how the consumer is behaving. So the first point is that you want to create creative that fits that behavior. And some of that behavior, for instance, is that we know for a fact that people spend on average 1.7 seconds per piece of content in their feed. 1.7 seconds. So that means you have the creative challenge to make that impression in that short period of time to get someone to maybe watch a longer piece of content or to really take away your key message. And this means also that thinking about mobile first. Now, I'm sick of this term, really. I've been saying it for years, gotta go mobile first, mobile first, mobile first. I get it, but think about it. So many consumers are on their phone all the time. I love that report that Apple gives me. It's like, you spent on average 52 hours on your phone this week. Oh, thanks, Apple. So, but you want to think about how can I communicate in that mobile format? Simply taking something that was designed, for example, for television and be like, I'll just cut it down and throw it on a phone. It's a completely different medium. So how do you think in that mobile mindedness? You think about, all right, how is a consumer going to experience this when they're scrolling through their feed? You know, if you're a client, you make sure that all the creative you ever review, you actually review it in the context of the actual phone. And again, and you think about the speed and the style. So if you're building for stories, instead of reusing your feed ad and just suddenly making it 9:16, you think about, okay, what is the personality of stories? How can I actually tap into that in a visual and stylistic way that makes sense in stories? So that's really about mobile-minded. The next point is thinking about how can you create this content in a non-linear way? And what I mean by that is sometimes we're thinking about creative and we have this beautiful PowerPoint made about the consumer decision journey or whatnot, and we're assuming a lot of touch points, that they saw this, and then suddenly they did this, and then they went here, and then they did this. And the reality is that a lot of times, especially in the world of digital, you don't know when they're going to experience something. So you have to think about in non-linear terms, meaning how can I make content that if they saw it here, 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 or then here, 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 it still makes sense. So kind of being able to mix and match those creative messages so they stand on their own and they work together is part of the skill that we should grow as creatives. And of course, the last one, and if you heard my speech at the last Ad World, make multiple versions. So another way to be consumer-centric is that you cannot make one creative and hope that one size essentially fits all. So one way to really connect with consumers is to create enough variety and variation in the different creative, whether it's a visual or a copy line, or even, different USPs about the product. You never know what's going to connect with a consumer. So by creating a variety of different ads, that is the best way that you can leverage things like the algorithm to help get to the right person. So that is consumer-centric creative. Moving on, creative commerce. So I hear this a lot from clients, right? They're like, I only want to put media behind those ads that drive conversion. Those other ads don't matter. And I get it from kind of a logical standpoint. If you're looking at the funnel, you're like, all right, here's awareness, here's consideration, and then here's conversion. Conversion. Well, that's where they click and they buy stuff. So of course I'm going to put all my media dollars there because that I can actually prove my return on ad spend. I can show my return on investment. And these other ads, these fluffy awareness consideration ads, I can't prove that it did anything. I can't prove that this awareness ad sold this. And that's where, I believe that we have a huge opportunity to deliver that full funnel, because we know from research that those campaigns that are driving to conversion, one that have top of the funnel content versus ones that don't have any, the ones with the more full funnel content are going to perform better. Well, it makes sense. Imagine you're scrolling through your feed and then all of a sudden this shoe pops up that you've never seen before, and it's like, click to buy here now. And you're like, whoa, I've never even seen you before. You want me to click to buy now? That's why you have to kind of first get them excited, show them the fun, cool ad, in stories. And then next, maybe show them in a carousel ad in the feed, all the different varieties of the shoes. And then once they've been exposed more to the product and have kind of gone through that journey, okay, then go click to buy. And that's why one of the opportunities for creative agencies is to build a full funnel strategy. So when you get the brief from the client, and maybe the client is only asking you for awareness, or maybe the client's only asking you for conversion, think about, as a creative, how can you help that client actually build a full funnel strategy? How are we going to communicate through each level to actually, warm up that relationship with the client enough so when they do see that conversion ad, that they do actually click it? And how do we create a strategy where we have put media behind this so we make sure that everyone is exposed to those different ads, so when they do get to that bottom of the funnel ad, they are clicking as well? And the other opportunity is, how do you actually make fit for funnel creative? So I don't know about you, but a lot of times I'm in my feed and maybe I saw this really cool, sexy ad, and then I see the ad that's meant to get me to convert, and it's like, are these from the same family? There's a result disjointed. And I know a lot of times we have our performance team over here and then we have our brand team, but they're not talking. They're not actually coordinating. How do I tell the story visually? How do I make it consistent? Because from the consumer standpoint, right, we're seeing the same brand. And yes, you may be two separate teams that may be in totally different countries, but from a consumer standpoint, we want to experience you as a single team, as a single type of creative messaging, visual, and feeling. And this is a great opportunity, again, for the creative folks to think about, all right, I'm doing the awareness, but what is the conversion like? Or I'm doing the conversion, what is the awareness like? And how can we bring that seamlessly together? So helping clients with their strategy for full funnel, making sure that they address each of those stages, and also making sure that the creative is consistent in that full funnel to deliver the best experience is a huge opportunity for creative, and it's a great way for clients to actually increase their performance on Karmas. Okay, production efficiencies. See, I did the singing again. I can't stop. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm by myself recording this. I'm not sure. Okay, production efficiencies. So I'm an ex-producer, or well, once a producer, always a producer, and I remember getting all those spec sheets, and you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to do this with only like 30 euros? And, yes, I heard the budget requires, I have to do 7 platforms, hundreds of different sizes, thousands of variations, and then somehow still be creatively inspiring. And this is one of the greatest opportunities we have to help our clients, is that there's so many different production efficiencies that can be had today that can help mitigate some of that actual manual work that we're blowing a lot of our budget on that could be shifted to creative. So as a creative person, as a creative agency, and I would even say as a client, it is critical to your business today to know all the different marketing automation software and tools available, right? There is tons of MarTech, tons of ad tech out there that you can research that can fulfill a bunch of different needs. And of course, not one size fits all. It may take multiple tools, combinations of them to actually find the right fit, but I guarantee you, with very few exceptions, it's going to be something is there for you that can actually help grow your business. And the second point that seems a bit silly, well, you've got to use a variety, right? So it's one thing to know what those tools are, but you need to start implementing them into different campaigns. And again, not every tool is going to fit for every campaign. I have clients that are maybe using this one company to build a messenger bot, and then they're using a whole different other tool to do dynamic ads. And then maybe for the next campaign, they switch it up a little bit. But the key here is making sure that you actually use the different tools. And as a creative and a creative agency, it's really critical that you're helping clients find that solution. So a lot of times clients, without the guidance of their agencies, are trying to go out and find these right tools for themselves. And the reality is the creatives are going to end up having to work with this tool. So it's better that if you propose these efficiencies and you're able to vet and find the right tool that fits your needs as well as the clients, so you can work better together. Because the reality is, it's coming. If your client isn't already using these tools, they're going to be using these tools, and being really adept at how they work and knowing how they work and how to properly implement them is a critical skill to have for every creative. And a good place to look for different types of partners is Facebook Marketing Partners. So what is Facebook Marketing Partners? Well, in this case, it is a website. You can go to the website, you can search for different Facebook marketing partners, which are other companies not owned by Facebook, but companies that we have vetted that have the right tools and APIs and integration that act really well with a lot of our platforms. Like I said, maybe a messenger bot, maybe it's a media buying tool, maybe it's a coupon redemption tool, but there is a lot of there, like over 1,000 different companies on there you can search for. And, if you're the creative person, where do you actually begin? Well, make a short list of some of these, read up some of these specs and have them pitch you, have them do presentations so you can understand the functionality. So when it comes to time to use some sort of automation tool, you're familiar with, at least a nice set of different companies who can do a variety of things, and you're ready to act in a fast way for your client. So check out Facebook Marketing Partners. Okay, test and learn. It is like my favorite thing in the world now for creative, because it is the greatest opportunity that we have on these digital platforms. And what I find so strange, right, is I hear sometimes from agencies or clients or even the media, so we ran, these 2 ads for 8 weeks. We got the post-campaign report and wow, you know what? We didn't do so well. And I'm like, wait a minute, are you telling me that you loaded only 2 ads? You just let it run for 8 weeks and then you checked in on it? Is this how you, I hope you're not cooking this way. I hope you don't throw it on the stove for 8 hours and then check back. No, I hope not. So what are we looking at for test and learn? Well, we want to, as creative agencies, be able to create and deliver creative that is designed for testing. What does that mean? It's not like the old school when we actually went and we made creative and then we went into a focus group and we watched them through a one-way mirror. No, what it really is that we can create content. Let's just say you have an edit of a 10-second video. So usually as a creative, you have your favorite edit, and then you have the one that the client really wanted, and then you have the one you kind of argued about and the compromise edit. So back in the day, what we'd have to do is we'd have to probably release the compromise edit. So those 2 other edits would never see the light of day. But because of how digital works, you can now put all 3 online, and within probably a week, you will know which one is actually performing better. So this is our opportunity. It's not necessarily that you're pre-testing, you're actually testing live in the campaign. So you check back in less than a week, you can see what's going on, and most importantly, you can actually learn, right? So you can see, all right, this video started with a cat, it started with a dog, this started with a monkey. Okay, the cat is the one that's really hitting it off, and you can use those learnings maybe to make more videos starting with cats. So the key here for creatives is that you're making enough variety of creative that you can essentially hedge your bets, because you never know exactly which creative is going to work best. And even tiny little edits and tweaks can make a huge difference in the performance. And most importantly, is take the learnings, see what's happening, and use those learnings and apply that to future campaigns, because that is how you build and you grow a brand, is using those learnings that you get from campaigns over and over again. Okay, data application. I don't know why I said that way, data application. I think maybe I'm trying to make it sound cool because it's a bit boring, right? If you're a creative person and someone like comes at you and they're like throwing all these numbers at you, they're like, hey, we got a 0.05% engagement rate. We had a VTR of 80% on a 10-second video, and oh yeah, big reach, but our URL was low. That's estimated ad recall for you non-media nerd people. So this is a lot of the data that is coming out, and most creative folks and most creative agencies aren't necessarily prepared to react to it and really have an opinion on it. And one of the skills that we should require and acquire for creative agencies is actually knowing what that data means and knowing which of that data actually equates to business impact and which does not. And what I mean by this, let's take, for example, the infamous engagement rate, right? Like, I got 10,000 likes, or I had this percentage and things. And so there's been a myth for many, many years that somehow engagement rate means something in terms of success for a business. The thing is, our research shows that engagement rate has no correlation whatsoever to business impact. In other words, just because you got a lot of likes doesn't mean you sold a lot of widgets. Now, that sucks. I mean, it would be awesome if, getting likes could actually sell things, but unfortunately it doesn't matter. But why is it important that you know that? Because as a creative, if your creative is being judged based on engagement rate and they're deciding whether or not it failed, it's important for you to understand, hey, client, FYI, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not working. So it's good for you to understand what these metrics are and which ones are actually having impact on the business outcome. And using that metrics, the other skill is how to properly apply that data to analyze and adjust your creative work. So in the example of maybe a 10-second video, you put out the 3 edits and you see that all the 3 videos are running, but one video, no one seems to make it past the first second. So to me, that would be a good indicator that, well, no one's watching. And it might be time to take back that video, make a new edit that really pulls someone in and maybe gets them to watch the content longer. So these are the type of just little things and the tweaks that you can do, while the campaign is running, setting up a system that you're checking in on the creative and editing it and putting in new creative. That is a great gift and opportunity of digital, is you can constantly adjust it. So use that data and use the strategy we talked about earlier, test and learn, to really drive progress from your clients. Better, not beta. So I once had an agency actually call me and they said, Ashley, can we make the phone vibrate? They wanted to run an ad, and when the user clicked on it, they wanted the phone to vibrate. And I said, okay, well, besides probably the technical limitations that would negate this ever happening, why do you want the phone to vibrate? And they said, well, we've never seen it before, right? We would be the first. We could do a beta with Facebook, and we're the first one making the phone vibrate. And, when we think about being the first, the thing I always tell creative agencies is it's not always great to be in the beta, right? Things aren't necessarily working well. It's not necessarily the best consumer experience. And really, if you want to deliver for your client, you should be focusing on better, not beta. So how are we leveraging technology to make something better, a better experience for the consumer, versus just simply being happy that we're first and that we're in a beta? And so really what we want to think about is, when we're using that different technologies, how can we give that consumer a better experience? Or, For instance, when I talk about Spark AR, which is the software we use to build like Instagram filters, people ask, okay, well, how do I make a successful Instagram filter? How am I getting people to use my brand? And I said, well, think about how can your filter deliver a gift to the consumer? So when they put whatever cat ears or whatever you've created on them, how can you create a moment of joy and connection between the brand and the consumer that you have provided and given to them? That is really what new technology about, is giving a better experience to an individual. And in the case for advertising, you have an opportunity to give a better experience to the consumer. So better, not beta. And last, certainly not least, is great creative. So this is a quote from Thomas Barrett. Any fool can make soap. It takes a clever man to sell it. And this man is considered one of the fathers of advertising. He headed up Pears Soap. And so if you Google Pears Soap ads, you can see these amazing ads that were put out. They were really progressive for the time. And why it was so amazing was that he was saying, you know what, everybody is selling soap, but how can I make my soap stand out? And he knew the power of creativity could actually make the difference. It wasn't necessarily that it had better ingredients or that it was cheaper. It was simply the creative, and he put his money on that, and he was correct. And so when we look at creativity, it's so important, even in the world of digital. In fact, it's even more important. So we see, for instance, 56% of a digital campaign's outcome is dependent on the quality of the creative. That means while the media can be awesome and like maybe the placement is awesome, if the creative isn't up to snuff and isn't good enough, it's going to take down your campaign and you won't make impact. So creative folks, take credit, show how much your work matters, invest that time and energy into making great creative when you're creating things for Facebook or Instagram and some of those other platforms. So big ideas are still things. So I've heard people like, digital, it's killing the big idea. It's not killing the big idea. What it means though is that you need to translate that big idea into the context of the consumer. So what may work as a big idea in 30 seconds on a television ad, may not translate perfectly to an Instagram story. And honestly, if the big idea only works in a 30-second TV ad, it's not a big idea. It's just an execution. So those big ideas are so critical to being a unifying theme in building brands, whether that's out of home, whether that's on Instagram, whether that's on television. But again, you have to be able to translate that into the context of the consumer. Are they looking at it on a mobile phone? Are they walking by? Are they listening? How does that big idea translate? And lastly, I think really important, especially in digital, is understand there is no perfect creative. So I know that we spend weeks and months trying to finesse and fine-tune this perfect edit or this perfect visual. Well, in the world of digital, we can keep refining and finessing that as we get feedback when something is live. So putting all this effort into finding that one piece of creative that's going to communicate everything and connect with every audience, I personally don't think it's possible, but I do know what's possible is to make a variety of creative. I know it's possible to connect with a different bunch of people by using those variations, and I know that it's possible to adjust the creative when you see the feedback. Use that opportunity in digital to do that great creative because it makes a huge difference. So to wrap up, the creative skills of the future, the near future, is consumer-centric creative. Again, thinking about how does the consumer experiencing in this context and how does our creative actually fit the context in which it's being seen. Creative commerce, again, how can we make a beautiful creative experience with consistent messaging and branding in that full funnel kind of commerce strategy. In production efficiencies, we're looking at how can we use third-party tools to actually deliver better value. So these different MarTech and AdTech tools, let's get to know them and use them in our campaigns so we can spend less on that manual labor and spend more on creativity. Test and learn, huge opportunity here to be able to put out different creative, to test it, learn it, and iterate all while running the campaign live. Data application, it's important that as a creative person, as a creative agency, you understand those data points that matter and actually how to use that data to adjust and iterate your creative. Better, not beta, lots of cool things coming out. When you see the new cool technology, think about not necessarily how can you be first to use it, but think about how can you be better at using it. This is what's important and delivers value for the consumer. And last but not least, great creative? How can you take that big idea that is so critical and important and translate it to all the different mediums and make sense in that context? That is the beautiful of it. And again, doesn't have to be perfect. There is no perfect creative. Get it out there, see what the feedback is, and adjust. Guys, thank you so much for watching my presentation. And for those of you who saw my presentation last time, thank you so much for all the feedback that you gave. It was really sweet. I saw a lot of you on LinkedIn, and some of you slid into my DMs. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the feedback. I hope this is helpful, and have a wonderful day. Thank you. you.